Hello and welcome. This is rooflemonger, my friends. We finally got a lot of info on Omni Man and Tremor as well for Mortal Kombat 1. So there was a Kombat Kast earlier today, and the details got dished out in a pretty big way. And not only gameplay details on Omni Man and Tremor themselves, but also some general patch details, as you may or may not be aware of. When Omni Man launches, which is tomorrow, as the time of this recording, that will also be the start of Season 2 of Mortal Kombat 1 for the Invasions mode and for the Combat League. So Season 2 is the Season of Blood, which will be Natara/vampire themed. All new colors, costumes, all that sort of goodies, and also some changes. Like say for Invasions, they're getting rid of super armor on enemies except for bosses, which is good because that was definitely frustrating, right? I don't know if you went through the Invasions, but having a lot of super armor on everybody got old really fast. So that's a good change in my opinion, and also in my opinion a good change. Combat League will be going back to 2 out of 3. So if you played any kind of ranked before, it was 3 out of 5. It's going back to 2 out of 3. 3 out of 5 is something I thought I wanted before the game came out. And then, I played a bunch of ranked in Season 1, and 3 out of 5 is good when the connection is good. When you're forced to play 3 out of 5 against a Wi-Fi opponent, and you have to play all the matches, it's a level of frustration I haven't experienced in a very long time, right? Just being forced into long sets against a garbage connection is not my idea of fun. So when things get bad, at least it's not as bad for as long, and plus 2 out of 3, it just plays faster, right? So I'm not opposed to that at all. Like, if you want 3 out of 5, go to the tournament. It was an eye-opener for me anyways, because once again, I always thought I wanted 3 out of 5. I got it, and then turns out, no, I actually didn't want it. So I'm personally glad for the change, although your mileage may vary. So now let's get to the Omni Man and Tremor details. You can see here, this is a showcase match from the developers. So nice to see the characters in uninterrupted action, but we got the fine details now, so let's head directly into it. So now Omni Man. So Omni Man, as was showcased here, we saw all the special moves. A few things to note. One, he's a very airborne character in that he does have an air dash. It's more like an Injustice air dash in that it's forward or backwards, no 8-way like Natara, but still, it's there. And also, basically all the specials are air okay, so he can do a lot in the air to say the least. Now, as for how he plays, they mentioned Brawler. The way I look at it is he's like, you never have to play neutral ever again. Like, yeah, there's still going to be intricacies of spacing and all that kind of stuff, but like pretty much every part of his moveset just immediately goes all the way to you. For a character without a traditional fireball and full screen option like that, he's not going to have much difficulty reaching you. So for normals, first, this right here is actually his sweep, which I didn't anticipate. We saw that in the trailer and it just looked like a special, but yeah, it's a sweep, so that's quite interesting. This right here is 4-3, and yes, it does soft launch by itself. This bad boy right here, that's forward 2. That's just a normal. And that is an overhead, by the way. And yes, you can alternate it, have it switch sides. So Mortal Kombat's Mortal Kombat. That doesn't mean, there's left-right cross-up or anything like that, right? But just the fact that that's just a normal for him kind of showcases the brutality and speed of the character. And also the neutral, skippy part of him, because that has some range to it. Now onto some specials here. So first up is the big clap. Now clap is not a full screen projectile, far from it. As you're about to see here, it will whiff from roughly this range coming up. Although if you burn meter on it, it will have more range, so that's handy. And basically, yeah, it's just like kind of like a poke, a footsie's tool almost. It's relatively fast for what it is. And as a special, you can end just all sorts of strings with it. Now, special-wise, Omni Man has multiple ways to charge at you. So this is the first one where he just belly bumps you. And this is his armored move. So if you enhance it, this move will have armor. And given its relative range and speed, you can almost use this like, say, Johnny Cage's Shadow Kick. And once again, you can do all the specials in the air as well. And from literal full screen here, you see he has a lot of fast options, right? So even though he doesn't have a traditional projectile, he can still work his way in very easily, right? So this is a big old Superman dive. And you may notice there, the move is different done on ground or in the air. So if you do it in the air, it'll actually ground bounce. Versus done on the ground, it knocks the enemy all the way back. So on the ground, it's more of a neutral skip tool. In the air, it's a combo starting tool. So same moves having multiple uses depending on how you use it. Hey, I like that quite a bit. Now, the stance. So he's not a stance character in a scary way. It just has 4 basic options and you're going to use it in combos. Don't be intimidated by it. It's actually pretty easy to understand. So stance can be done in the air, as we mentioned earlier, and you have multiple moves from stance. So one of them is effectively your warp teleport, where you can be wherever you are on the screen and just very quickly with super speed, blah, you're on the other side quick as a whistle. Next up, we have the grab. Now, they didn't specify if this is a true command grab or if it's a hit grab, but either way, if it connects and it's very easy to combo into, you slam the enemy and you can pop them up and free combo damage. I'll be biased. I hope it's a command grab. Now, also in stance, there's a lot of options here, and another one is basically a super speed attack, where you quickly go on the other side of the screen, as we've seen in the trailers, hit the enemy, and they say this could be like a counter zoning tool and just, catch people sleeping at the wheel. And hey, speaking of catching people sleeping at the wheel, he has a command overhead. So this is basically like a Goro stomp almost, except, well, it's blockable, but it must be blocked standing. Also notice that there's a big bounce associated with it, right? So that screams combo ability to me. Maybe full screen you might not be able to get too much, but if you're in the corner when they're not being bounced far away, I almost am certain you can get some pretty juicy combos going on with that. And our final move out of stance is just a big old wallop, like literally travels the screen really quick and just uppercuts you. It was mentioned specifically that this is very good as an air control move, as it covers a lot of the upper aerial space, as the uppercut, has a hitbox that covers the air, right? So a lot of options out of the stance. But basically, look at stance as like a way to just get more special moves. It's not like he gets all new normals, all new strings. He's not like a complicated stance character like you might find in like Virtua Fighter or Tekken or something. He's pretty simple. It's just a way to get even more moves out of your move set. And of course, we saw in the trailers, but in case you don't know, while he is in the stance, he is effectively immune to all fireballs. And you can see here low fireballs too, right? So there's no tricky claws out. So if you're just dealing with hardcore zoning, all sorts of spam from cameos and just the character doing fireballs, this leaves you very safe. And the enhanced stance is also immune to all strikes as well. You just dodge everything. Now, they specifically don't show throws, and given how fighting games generally work, anything that's a counter stance usually is free to getting thrown. I'll assume much the same here, although I guess we don't actually know, but we will find out soon enough. And the final bit here to showcase it visually is the air dash. So yeah, he is an air dash character. Not as good as Natara. Like, that's her gimmick, so we're not stealing it here. But the thing here for him, forward and backwards air dash in the air, it does have a hitbox, so it can hit people. And it's actually necessary for some of his air combos. And you can also do it multiple times, although every air dash past the first will cost you an additional bar. But still, if you're looking for air combos or just general mobility, that is going to be a very, very big help. So that's Omni Man. What about Tremor? Because Tremor has the variation system, right? And turns out Tremor's kind of wild. He's easily the most involved cameo in the game. Each variation of Tremor has its own set of moves, so he can do more than anybody else. So you can see here, like, say this is Aftershock, right? He has the basic rock punch, quick as you do. Also, rock uppercut, which is a quick launch. So if you're just looking for like basic launcher stuff for any character, there you go. And you're going to notice that they're all summons, right? And this is going to hold through everything, that they're all summons. But that can change. So here's the final Aftershock move, right? And it's the ground pound, like he's always had back in the day. So Aftershock is pretty basic, right? And it doesn't need to be fancy, because we get fancy in the other variations. So how do the variations work? It actually works off the base cameo button. You hit the cameo button, and you switch your variation for the character. So Tremor will always start in Aftershock. They didn't make that clear. So no matter what, you'll always begin in Aftershock stance. But once you tap the cameo button, he'll come out, and then he'll switch over to the next variation. So tap, and now he's in metallic stance. And it doesn't cost bar to switch as far as I can tell. And if you hit down cameo, you can switch the other way. So instead of going to metallic, you can go into crystalline, right? Metallic has a bit more range, so big lava burst, as you can see here. Good knockdown on the enemy. Also an upwards version to control the sky. And he also has the big metallic projectile. So basically big bop on the enemy. And if you hold the button, it actually changes the arc and becomes an overhead. So metallic has a lot of variety and range. And once again, they're all summons, but we'll get to that in a second. That can be changed. And the main event, crystalline, right? So crystalline's one everyone is scared of. So first, you do have the crystal crash. It's just a big old hit, and it does reflect projectiles. We've seen that in the trailers before, so that's there and works as advertised. Of course, the big one, the one people were scared of, and they mention it out of the gate, right? Crystalline was famous for one thing, and that was the super armor. And yes, Kameo Tremor will give you crystalline armor. So that's going to be a thing. So they can show an example of it just out of the gate here, right? So we have the armor go live, and when it's live, notice Liu Kang can't do too much to stop the armor. Now, it's not proper super armor in that you can see Omni Man is flinching, right? He's at 0 health, so it's hard to tell if he's actually taking proper damage or not, but he's flinching, but he's not getting full blown back. He's not going to get comboed, so that's going to be the deal here. But effectively, it will let you tank through a lot of nonsense. Now, before you freak out, because I already seen some people freaking out, it does not last a terribly long time. As you can see here, here's our start, and it's basically only live for a few seconds because it goes away fairly quick. There you go, right? And like all these other things, it is a summon call, right? So you have to commit to it. It's not like, say, Sub-Zero's ice armor, where that's an ambush call. Well, except for when it is. So, lack of a more elegant term here, Tremor can absolutely just cheat. So when you switch your variation with Tremor, if you go for a Kameo move right after the fact, you can do that instantly. The variation switch is an ambush, right? And canceling the variation switch into a Kameo move gives that Kameo move the ambush property, regardless of it being a summon normally. Now, as you can see, there's a heavy cost associated. It takes the whole Kameo bar to do so, but that means all of his moves, and he has more moves than every other Kameo, can be given the ambush property. So you have a lot of variety and a lot of moves at your disposal, to say the least. And yes, that does mean you can ambush, give yourself the crystalline armor. You still got to be in range because it does whiff there, but still, that's going to be a pretty big deal, right? So normally everything takes, half a Kameo bar, as you would expect if it's a summon, but if you use it as an ambush, then it takes the full Kameo bar, but it gives you all sorts of variety and all sorts of fun opportunities to just do some wacky stuff. I guess we're speaking a bit early here, but just by what's on paper here, it looks like the Tremor Kameo is going to be pretty dang good. Like, ambush, super armor is probably what everyone's thinking. One thing off the top of my head, okay, General Shao has the full screen low, right? It's projectile. And if you can ambush call a full screen overhead with the metallic boulder toss, that means Shao could 50-50 you from full screen. Seems pretty wild, doesn't it? Plus, I'm sure a million other little gimmicks and gewgaws we can all figure out over time. So yeah, pretty impressed. And honestly, I think I'm more impressed with Tremor than I am with Omni Man. Omni Man looks good. It looks like maybe I would say even a fairly simplistic character, although I say this every time in every game, simple doesn't mean bad, easy doesn't mean bad, but fairly straightforward. He's just going to get in your face, and he's going to get in your face no matter what, because he has air dashes, he has effective teleports, he has full screen charge moves. Like, there's nothing keeping this character out. He is neutral skip the character. But Tremor seems like extra wild. Like, it makes me think, if this is their baseline Kameo DLC, what are the other Kameo DLCs going to be like? Because that's the fun of Kameo DLC specifically, and that's going to be one of the really good things of the game going forward in the future. Like Omni Man. Say you like Omni Man, great. But say you don't, well then, he doesn't really have anything to offer you, right? Like, that's it. That sucks, right? Like, I guess I'll go back to whatever character I was playing before. But Tremor and any other DLC Kameo, that's more than just a character, right? Like, okay, how does Tremor work with Johnny? How does Tremor work with Scorpion? How does Tremor work with Antara? How does Tremor work with Shao? Like, how does Tremor work with everyone, right? Every character gets a buff every time there's a new Kameo getting launched in the game. Obviously, every Kameo is not going to work for everyone. That's just not how that's going to be. But it's fun, right? Like, you get to explore around. Like, it's a new toy for the whole roster versus a DLC character is just a DLC character. And if you like it, great. And if you don't, well, then too bad. So we'll wait till we see him in action, I guess. But just on paper, what we were shown, man, Tremor looks really, really, really cool. And if that's the baseline of quality, then everything else is just going to get really exciting from here. That all said, though, that's the info for now. Omni Man launches very soon, so keep checking the channel as there'll be more content on Omni Man and obviously Mortal Kombat 1 going on in the future. And other than that, well, I guess we're at the end of the video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some Mortal Kombat.